I knew about Romeo Dobbs. We all did. Massive headlines, wasn't going to be at the game. What I didn't know, though, was that Rashawn Gary wasn't going to show up either. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Dalray. Rashawn, please don't off me. Please, you're still big and scary. All right, so here's the deal. This was, for the Green Bay Packers, still a 5-point win, 24-19 over the Los Angeles Rams. But I think all of us watching it, certainly those in the watch party, it was like 90%. Yeah, it had its flashes, it had its great plays. But like a large chunk of this game was rather blasé, uninspired, if you will. Just kind of a lot of vanilla, flat out, for the Green Bay Packers. So, like, realistically, if this game would have happened last year, I got a decent amount of faith that this is the kind of game that they dropped last year. So while they're not necessarily the juggernaut that we were all thinking they might be at this point, there's at least signs that they are moving that way, and year over year, that's still an improvement. So, like, we're going to go through this. I'm going to give you the shout outs, kind of the players or the individual circumstances that really deserve some adulation. And then on the other side of things, the get outs, the little negatives. And yeah, one Rashawn Gary might find himself on that list this week. So before we get to that, though, one super quick update for you. Now, I went through this extensively in the watch party, how I've been feeling about the Romeo Dobbs stuff, what is going on there, what I think is... I do believe there's something more going on with Romeo Dobbs, the human, than just throwing a fit about not getting the ball or the game plan or the finer details that you may never know about this. Regardless, though, sounds like the Packers are just moving forward. Matt LaFleur in his press conference yesterday said that he did have a productive conversation with Romeo Dobbs and that they're looking to move forward. So now we'll see what actually comes into fruition here and how they actually do. We'll find out really tomorrow. If Dobbs is there, great. And by all accounts, sounds like he will be. So let's get to the good news. Let's go to the shout outs. And first of all, shout out number one goes to Tucker Kraft. Choose whichever nickname you like, but 4 catches, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus the 3rd highest pass blocking grade on the team. So you can call him a tough mother Tucker. You can call him Kraft Yak and Cheese, whichever one you want. We can say pretty unequivocally that Tucker Kraft at this juncture is a keeper. In fact, Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated just put out an article this morning, and I thought it had 2 great little tidbits in it that I clipped for you here. Here's the exact quote from Huber. Kraft is like a bowling ball made of butcher knives. While he's tied for 14th among tight ends with 16 receptions, he's number 1 with 7 forced missed tackles, according to PFF. I would say it's a lot mentality, Coach Matt LaFleur said on Monday. Kraft's running after the catch dominance isn't a surprise. He led all tight ends in yards after the catch per catch as a rookie last season, and it was his calling card at South Dakota State. Now another one, a little bit different way of using the stat, I should say. According to NFL data, 90 players have caught at least 15 passes through the first 5 weeks. Kraft is 3rd in that group with 11.25 yak per catch, trailing only a pair of running backs, Atlanta's Bijan Robinson and Chicago's DeAndre Swift. So it's not just that Kraft is being so effective. It's the missed tackles. It's the yak, right? Such a different player than Luke Musgrave, who we discussed on the watch party. Stop expecting Luke Musgrave to turn these into plays. It's not how he is. He goes deep down the field. He catches the ball deep down the field. Don't ask him to do anything with a whole lot of coordination involved. But Tucker, he is your bowling ball with knives, as Bill Huber put it so well. Next player who deserves a shout out. I think he's literally been here all 5 weeks. Xavier McKinney. Of course, the big deal is the interceptions, right? First player in the Super Bowl era to get a pick in each of his 5 games with the new team. Yes, great, wonderful, absolutely. But so much more than that. Because a 0.0 quarterback rating when targeted. 3 tackles, no misses, a pass breakup. But the thing that really stood out for me goes beyond the numbers. Because yeah, he also had the fumble recovery, turnovers, right? But just watching. That fumble recovery, perhaps to me, was the best single frame that I've seen that's so emblematic of what Xavier McKinney is doing. If you go back and watch that, you see the ball begins to squirt out, right? And Xavier McKinney is kind of behind a couple of guys who are fighting, and the ball squirts out. And as is typical, you see a lot of panic, a lot of flailing limbs, a lot of trying to get on the ball. Xavier McKinney, being a couple yards back, kind of to the side of them, just starts pointing to where the ball is. And then it begins to go in his direction a little bit, kind of gets free. He just runs over and gets it. And it was like, if you watch just him, it's like everyone else had this like scatter, this pressure to go get the ball. Xavier's just like, oh, there it is. Oh, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. Because to me, when I watch Xavier McKinney right now, and it's the exact same thing in coverage, it's like everyone else is just moving slower around him. And it's not because he's the Flash. It's not because he's crazy fast. It's about processing. The fact that everyone else is looking around and having to process what they see, and Xavier just gets it. And I don't love this player comp. I see it floated around a lot. I don't think these two guys are the exact same. But in this way, it looks an awful lot like Charles Woodson. Just cool, collected, so in control of himself, which allows him to control the chaos that is around him. It is, we have not seen safety play like this, like in generations in Green Bay. He's on another level right now. And to me, that play, that processing is just so evident. It is so just incredible to watch. Next up, let's talk the left side of the offensive line. Elgton Jenkins, Rasheed Walker. The Packers overall gave up 11 pressures on Sunday. Not terrible. But the good news, 2 came from the center through the left tackle. 9 of them came from tight ends or the right side of the line, etc., or running backs. 2, Josh Myers gave up 1. Rasheed Walker gave up 1. Elgton Jenkins, 0. This was pretty easily Rasheed Walker's best game of the year. And for Elgton Jenkins, he is definitely back in all-pro form. This might have been his best game of the year, too. Now, Zach Tom, he did have an uncharacteristically rough game. Not quite bad enough to get himself shoved into the get-outs list when we get there, but it was a rougher game for Zach Tom. And Sean Ryan, he got beat a couple times, too. But Elgton, Sheed, even for the most part, Josh Myers, at least in pass pro, they were on top of their game. And how important that was as the right side was struggling. If Rasheed Walker and Elgton Jenkins can co-op block like that all the time and rebuild the left wall that used to be there with Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, then, paired with Zach Tom having a more normal week, this group can absolutely cement itself as one of the best pass blocking units in the league, even beyond what they've already been doing. Next up, Jordan. All right, Jordan. There was a throw in there that we're not going to talk about for the shout-outs portion of the day. But realistically, the Tyler Herrick of Cheesehead TV, he put this out. Ignore the noise. It's part of a larger comment he's making. But still, the stats here are true. After that pick 6, Jordan Love, 12 of 13. That should say 2 touchdowns and no picks. 160 yards. 12.3 yards per attempt. And a 143.6 QB rating. That 12.3 yards per attempt, if you take that and put it over, like say that that's what he's doing all the time, that would be tops in the NFL by a full 4 yards. See, the thing is, like right now, and we've talked about it a bunch, are there times where Jordan Love is still limited? Yes. Are there times when he's trying to get 20 points on a single throw? Yes. But when he plays in rhythm, when he really gets cooking, when his receivers catch the freaking ball, the ceiling is still obscenely high for Jordan Love. And that's why the man got paid, because he did it game in and game out the latter part of the year. And that's what the Packers are trying to get back to on a consistent basis. But this performance, 12 of 13, 2 touchdowns, 143.6 QB rating, over still like half the game. That's just great stuff. Next up, let's talk Jeff Hafley, right? My friends Wisco Fanatics put this out there. Overall, the Packers defense, only 13 points allowed. Forced 2 more turnovers. Yes, the Packers do lead the NFL there. And Stafford, that wily veteran that everyone's afraid of all the time, 78 QBR. Now, you can say a couple little things here, right? Like Eric Stokes on Code Parkinson was nearly had me ripping out what little hair I got left. And the blitzes, you might want to say, like, they took too long to really start getting called. Because the Rams O-line, we talked about it, not terrific, and yet the Packers didn't get a lot of pressure. We're going to talk about that for sure later. But still, ultimately, his defense gave up only 13 points. They got 2 turnovers. They did get overall 19 pressures. And you know what? Even beyond that, he did the thing. He finally did the thing. They rolled out big nickel. With Jair Alexander out, they said, this is the time. Evan Williams is ready. We want to get him on the field. Carrington Valentine's still kind of banged up. Big nickel week. And what I mean by that is it's the Packers formation where they put Javon Bullard into the slot and then put Evan Williams on the field. Really, the only difference here from what I consider the best defensive formation to be is they had Keyshawn Nixon out at boundary corner. And for what it's worth, I will give full credit to Keyshawn Nixon. He did have a great game on the boundary. It's been a bit of an anomaly, but he did do very well as a boundary corner in this game. And still, though, to me, the big nickel is looking at your guys and saying, who are the best? Who are the best 5 for the secondary? How do we get them on the field together? To me, that's your big nickel formation. And plus, a special shout out here for the rookies. Because Edgerrin Cooper, it is so clear at this point that he needs to be on the field every single play. The impact that he makes, even in doing half snaps, even in doing limited, it's still worth it. You're going to have some rookie mental mistakes for sure, but he makes so much more of an impact than like an Isaiah McDuffie amongst others. He needs to be on the field more. Example, there were 5 pass rushing attempts in this game for Edgerrin Cooper. It resulted in 1 sack and 1 hurry. Frankly, we know one of the things that Quay Walker does best is rushing the passer. Maybe Cooper needs to be the one playing every down, and Quay needs to be the one who's getting 20 snaps a game and have a whole bunch of them be pass rushing. Maybe it's a better solution. And for what it's worth, don't get me wrong, don't take that completely out. Quay is playing better, it is getting better than where he was, but still. Point remains, Edgerrin Cooper needs to be on the field every single down. And then the other rookies, Evan Williams, 78 defensive snaps, the same amount as Xavier McKinney. 5th highest PFF defensive grade on the team. 9 total tackles, 56.9 QB rating when targeted. Plus, just thinking back on the game, he was around the ball all the time. Remember back when the Packers very first signed Rudy Ford and they had to put him in, how he was a spark plug? He was the energy that the defense needed because he was just fast and he was around the ball all the time. It looked so much like that to me, that Evan Williams just sought the ball, was by it, and just kept on making plays. And Javon Bullard switching into the slot. 7 total tackles, 2 of which were stops. And I know there's debate out there about where Bullard should really be. Should he be a slot? Should he be a safety? Where is he ultimately going to be best in his career? Look, we could continue having that debate, but the reality is he's at least NFL starter worthy at slot and safety 5 games into his career. That is tremendously commendable. The rookies on this defense all look like hits. Shout out Brian Gutekunst, shout out Jeff Hafley, shout out to the players. Great work all around. So now I didn't do any mehs this week because most of the game was meh, but let's get to the other side of things. Let's talk the get-outs. That throw. This number 1, that throw. Yeah, you know which one. You know. It's that one. The pick 6 for Jordan Love. I'm not going to pick on Jordan Love too much, but that had to be one of the single worst throws that I've ever seen in any way. And I know he was just trying to get the ball out of bounds. But dude, it didn't work. Also, I thought this was very humorous. So Dusty Evely, he put out, throwing the ball in this position is crazy. Yes, it is. But then someone then sent that on Twitter to Art But Make It Sports, an account that basically takes sports stills like that one and finds classical art to mirror it. And it's really quite humorous all the time. So someone says, hey, is this a thing? And he goes, yeah, a pick 6. Oh, Art But Make It Sports, you don't got to do us like that. All right, so now moving on to the next one. Let's talk about the next get out. And I'm just going to say the run game. Are you thinking offense? Are you thinking defense? The fact that you're thinking either one is kind of what I'm talking about. Because in the scope of this game, you can argue both probably should have been better. Josh Jacobs, he did have some great individual runs, no denying it. But ultimately, he ended with 19 carries, 3.8 yards per carry. Emmanuel Wilson, he didn't fare a lot better, 6 carries, 4 yards per carry. So not not terrible. Jacobs also had that one great touchdown run. Yeah, they were great individual runs. So it's not an awful performance overall, but in the greater context here with how the Packers were running the ball, the fact that they were going against the worst run defense in the NFL, yeah, then maybe you can expect something better than what they gave. And I do think some of the blame here does fall on Matt LaFleur's shoulders. Again, against the worst run defense in the NFL. They didn't really do any of the run concepts that we saw work so well in weeks 2, week 3, when Malik Willis was in at quarterback. Like, the stuff that they did then was a departure from what they normally do. And now with Jordan Love back at quarterback, they just kind of have gone back. And the hope was that they would have learned from that, bring in some of those traits, right? Make it real, like complete. No, but they kind of haven't. And that, I think you can argue, led to some of the running deficiency yesterday. On the defensive side of the ball, to flip it, again, in scope here, because Kieran Williams is a great running back, but he came into this game behind a pretty broken Rams offensive line, and he was averaging under 4 yards per carry on the season. Yesterday, though, he also had no performances over 100 yards yet. Against Green Bay, he did both. He had 22 carries, 101 yards, and a 4.6 average. Even their backup, Blake Corum, when he got in, he averaged 5 yards a carry. So overall, the Rams running backs forced 6 missed tackles. The Packers, Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson, forced 3. So whether that's an indictment of the Packers running backs not running well enough, okay. Whether that's an indictment of the Packers defense not tackling well enough, maybe it's a bit of both. I'll leave that up to you. The fact remains that both of those things, pretty large disappointments. Okay, yeah, now we got to talk about Rashawn. Rashawn, I love you, man. But we've been talking about this for a couple weeks. What is going on with Rashawn Gary? Because, yeah, there's plenty of theories out there, but man, this is pretty damning. Rashawn Gary, this was put out by Derek Carragher on Twitter. Rashawn Gary just had his 3rd zero-pressure game in 4 weeks. Before this, he was on a 54-game streak, dating back to early 2020. 54-game streak of recording at least 1 pressure. What is going on? And then he shows there the bottom being a graph, just in terms of like the overall pass rushing productivity. And he captions it with, "This is not something that happens to a 26-year-old pass rusher in the NFL." Now, there's plenty of theories going on out there. Lack of pass rush sequence, lack of a plan. Mike Wall saying he's making it easy on offensive linemen. He's not getting low enough, etc., 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 right? Lots of things can be said. Maybe it's hand in dirt. Who knows? But the reality is, we're getting to the point now where it's not anomalous, it's actually concerning. And I really want to find out why. From a statistical perspective, I actually found out something interesting. The Packers as a team, yep, they racked up 19 pressures. And if that feels like a lot compared to what we watched, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. The vast majority of those pressures did indeed come in half 2 when Halfley actually started ratcheting up the blitz. So that can help explain that a little. But here's a breakdown of those 19 pressures. Carl Brooks, 4. Kenny Clark, 3. Edgerrin Cooper, 2. Kobe Wooden, 2. Walker, 2. Slayton, 2. Preston Smith, 2. Javon Bullard, 1. Kingsley Enagbare, 1. Out of 19 total pressures, a mere 3 actually came from defensive ends, supposedly the star pass rushers of a 4-3 defense. But you see, like, 19 pressures, 3 came from defensive end. Now, you could say Javon Bullard's came from outside, but realistically, Carl Brooks, he plays defensive tackle, he got 4. Kenny Clark, defensive tackle, he got 3. Wooden, defensive tackle, got 2. Cooper, mostly coming from up the middle, got 2. Almost all of the pressure that the Packers are generating is coming from up the middle, not from the outside. So now the question becomes, is it that all of the Packers' defensive ends are just playing poorly? That none of them are good enough at rushing the passer? Or is there a larger problem in terms of scheme and usage? Are they not being asked to attack uphill like we talked about so much in camp? Are only the defensive tackles being asked to do that? Or are they being asked to go too far outside? Being asked to do the kinds of things that like a Will McDonald of the Jets would do. These smaller edge rushers who are bendier, quicker. That ain't Rashawn Gary. That ain't LVN. It was not Preston Smith ever. It certainly is not Preston Smith at this age. None of the Packers' defensive ends are these quick twitch bend types. And maybe that's what they're being asked to do is they line up really far outside and they're asked to completely wrap around the pocket. So every pass rush they have is a tank. And they're really not being used like it. Or what we see time and again for Rashawn Gary is even when he is asked to attack uphill, then he just kind of stands up and goes straight at the offensive tackle. Which, yeah, as Mike Wall points out, that's pretty easy to block. So is it scheme? Are all of them just bad? Are they being used poorly? Maybe a combo? Regardless, though, Rashawn Gary is kind of the poster child of a defensive end group that just isn't doing enough in terms of rushing the passer. And he winds up on this list, and something here has got to change pretty quick. I do not buy the conversations that he's fat or lazy. It's not Rashawn Gary. Something's going on here, and it's got to get fixed. Next, the fourth quarter sequence of plays. Now, I was preparing to say the fourth quarter on the whole, but that wouldn't totally be right. Like, they did have one drive that did its job, took up 8 minutes of game clock. But the second drive in the fourth quarter was rough. You're only up 5, 3 minutes, 30 seconds to go. A good, effective running drive will end this game. But that's not what they did. You know, even go back to the Malik Willis games. Like, just use those plays. Get out of here. Just didn't happen. First play. Okay. 13-yard run. Josh Jacobs. Good. Yes. Do that again. Next play. First down. Should be another run, right? Continue to whittle on down that clock. Instead, with 3:23 on the clock left, up 5, they decide on first down to do an RPO quick screen to Malik Heath, of all people. Winds up being hit by the defensive lineman. Stops the clock. Yeah, all right. You did an RPO. Okay. Second down. 2nd and 10. They line up in shotgun. Hand it to Josh Jacobs. No gain. Timeout Rams. All right. So in 2 plays, we've used up 5 seconds of clock, maybe. And only 1 Rams timeout. So now it's 3rd down. 3rd and 10. Those first 2 plays are rough. So I said in the watch party, I think this is a situation you got to try for the first down. You got to throw the ball here. I'm not in agreement with just running it because then you're giving yourself up, right? You got to at least try to get the first. What I did not have in mind was a 40-yard deep shot of a low chance completion to a dude who's having difficulty catching the ball right now. This is what a little bit of what I was talking about with Jordan Love trying to get 20 points on a single play. Because that's kind of what it had an appearance to do. Like, he wanted the game to end right here. So we're trying a 40-yard dot to Dontavian Wicks. And you can argue, like, oh, but it would have worked if Wicks would have caught the ball. Yeah, I get it. Still probably a rough process. It just would have worked. But the thing is, I much would have rather had some kind of scripted, open, 10-yard-ish, higher chance completion. It's not just the fact that it wasn't incompletion. That's not the thing that's in the get out category here. It's the fact of what they actually called to get because that play has a low chance of working. And so you wound up stopping the clock again. And that could have, if the defense didn't stand tall in that last drive, could have lost the game in one 4-play sequence. It was not good play calling. It was not good decision making. And I don't want to make it bigger than it is, but the reality is that could have cost the Packers the game. Something right now is missing. They are the epitome of boom or bust offense. They still lead the NFL in explosive plays. They still are putting up incredible offensive numbers. But what they just seemingly can't get well right now is these 10-yard plays, 12-yard plays, the easy ones. The ones that they lived on in week 2 and week 3. And I've seen some speculation. Maybe it's because they're doing way more shotgun than normal because Jordan Love can't handle having his knee go under center right now. He can't turn it like that. He can't do the rotate. Okay, fine. But then something has to be found with the offense because we got to start getting the easy stuff back. And they're close. We know it. Just like last year, there's a stretch where they're close. But it's got to come back. Regardless, though, This was a game that they won. Are there concerning things from this game? Yeah, they'll get it. Still some concerning stuff. But overall, though, some really standout individual performances to give the Green Bay Packers a good Week 5 win to go to 3-2. Now, next week, they take on a surging Cardinals team, fresh off a big victory of their own, and a very, very different test, very, very different team than what the Rams just presented. Thanks so much for being here. I will see you tomorrow for LTB Live at 4 o'clock, and then Friday previewing Packers versus Cardinals. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, and as always, go Pack Go.